Right, this is another episode of the Best Damn League show. For real, for real. We are all Zoomers now because this is actually the real Best Damn League show with Dom. I told you he would come back, even though I've sort of made it like you're like some like legend of old in all the other episodes. I always mention at the beginning you're not here, but you actually are here now. You know what's funny, Dom? This is how like life just has its own sense of humor, you know, timing, like happenstance. This is not a joke, guys. We actually did plan completely to do this episode way further out than we normally do. And it had nothing to do, because it hadn't even been hinted yet, with the Karmine Corp drama or any of the other stuff that happened with BDS on Twitter. That just happened to be good luck on our half, because it does sort of feed into this show, because that's actually the maddest thing, Dom. You've basically picked the best time ever to come back. You actually have done your fucking Gandalf arc. You went away as Dom the Grey, Gandalf the Grey. Then you came back, you know, on the light of the third day or whatever it was, as Gandalf the White, to come in and slay all the hordes of orcs. Sorry, French people. Sorry, did I get that wrong way around there? Shit, I do that every now and then. One, by the way, shout out to all French people who, if you point out, like, I just don't like you, or I think you're stupid, they go, racism. It's like, what's brilliant is that'll never be racism. It'll never work that way. Not least because, spoiler, we're the same race, you fucking morons. Think it through. But okay, there's that. So, Dom, let's just start. Instead of doing it, obviously, everyone wants to get the drama in, right? So I actually think the first place to obviously start, I saw you dressed it on your stream, obviously, is the Karmine Corp firing of Yamato, right? The initial position I have is this, Dom. Obviously, on all the other shows, I've gone pretty fucking hard. So what I'll do initially is I'll just sort of play devil's advocate and I'll put it to you and test your position, right? So here's the first question I would say, is if someone has a team with big names on it and they come into the LEC, if they lose 7 games in a row, you should at least be able to have the conversation. Could it be the coach, right?
Yeah, you can definitely have the conversation. I just think that in general, if you are going to get a coach in League of Legends that has the history that Yamato Cannon has, you're not looking at a winter split success. You are trying to ramp up over the course of the year. The last times that Yamato has been in LEC, he's got his team to Worlds. He's been able to band-aid problems with the team and find solutions that ended up being core to their success later on in the season when it came to drafts, when it came to like how the team needed to play in order to have any amount of success. And it seems like they brought in a coach like Yamato Cannon. They're like, all right, results right now in winter. It's the only thing that matters. If you don't get to at least the top 8, if you don't get to, I guess now playoffs, since we call it playoffs in LEC.
Yes.
If you don't get to the group stage, if you don't get to playoffs, you're done. You're just getting cut immediately. And I think that it's super like unfair, obviously. And the point that I made on Power Spike that I'll make to you here as well is, what do people think that a coach can do? Because if you look at what a coach's ability is with a team, the 2 places that you'll look are drafts and early game, because it's almost impossible to coach out mid to late game shot calling, like in decision making.
Yes.
In a game like League of Legends, like there's no way to actually call or like to fix those problems, because there aren't the tools in the game to actually allow you to test and practice mid to late game situations. And those situations are normally fixed by review. Like you just have to be in those games you have to get those games out in official games, and you have to just like deconstruct that after the game and be like, okay, what should we do in this situation? It's extremely hard to coach these types of things, because in scrims you just don't get those situations.
It's arguably the hardest thing in the world to coach, like you said, Dom. The joke is there's elite like LPL and LCK teams that can't do late game macros sometimes, or struggle with it. I'm with you, mate. The real problem there is obvious, which is, like you say, it's not like you can drop your team into a scrim at 30 minutes in a certain scenario and then have them just play it out 7 times. Like essentially, you're just coaching fundamentals at that point. You just hope you condition the players and they figure it out themselves. So to put it another way, you're leading towards this. So if the 2 areas are early game and draft, look, disclaimer, we obviously like Yamato Cannon and have him on our content, so there is a level of bias, but I'd also say that means we know him better. You think in those 2 areas he was doing good enough at least?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think that their drafts were I mean, they were losing drafts where they had 3 winning lanes and a jungle that outfarms the enemy jungle. Like they were losing games with those drafts. How the fuck can you win? Like, what do you need to get these guys for them to be competent enough to win a game of League of Legends? If all your lanes win and your jungle has a good pick for the game and he outfarms, it should just be that the other team doesn't get to breathe, and somehow they're losing games like that. So when I'm looking at these games, it's so strange to me that you'd ever look at a coach. Like if you just watched the gameplay, right, and you didn't think about, like, you didn't know any of the players, you didn't know the coach, if you just watch like a random team play these games, would you not immediately focus on like the egregious level of mechanical performance of the players in the game? Would that not just be the first thing in your mind? It's like, holy fuck, like, oh, Targamas didn't block the Maokai ult. I know like people went back in the replay and they're like, oh, actually like he might have actually got hit because of like the Z-axis in the game. Like there's a chance that he might have got hit for, but it's like the point is in that situation, everyone thinks that he didn't block the ult, so they all start moving erratically because he mistimes it like so egregiously. You look at the Ashe game that Targamas played. You look at the laning phase from the Cabo Shard game. You look at Socket and team fights. Like these are obviously the areas that you would first jump to as like maybe these need to be fixed first. And for the record, I was down with them running it back an entire split. I think that it's reasonable to be like, okay, it was a bad split. We'll run back all 9 players just for spring, because spring, it's really hard to make changes between winter and spring. You can run back the whole team, the players, the coach, whatever, and you can run it back one more time. I wouldn't have been mad at that decision. Replacing the coach, it just doesn't make sense. It's like maybe the 5th place you would go. Like it would be the 5th change that you'd possibly make. I think the only player that would be, or the only person in that room, if you go for like 5 players and coach, that would be more egregious to replace after these games, it would be Bo, because they literally are getting like early game leads every single game almost, and they're losing all these games. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Here's where I'll start on that. So first of all, the reason why it's insane that this has happened to me is because I actually feel like, Dom, I know like European football's not your thing, but I can tell you, if you think like the NBA is bad, mate, for firing coaches, football is the most brutal sport in the world, because even the best teams, if their team becomes 4th next season, fire the manager, even if he was the manager, by the way, who won them the season like 2 seasons ago. So I will say that the culture in European football is that if you have a choice between like, I have to basically replace a star player or the coach, you just replace the coach, because the logic goes, it's harder to replace the star player. It's like what you're saying here about getting players. So I actually feel like, no joke, in some ways, even people like us inadvertently played part of this, because what was the one refrain everyone was saying going into the end of this, like at the time people looked like they were going to be 0-9. Everyone was like, right, the question is just which players do we replace? Nobody was saying what you were saying, Dom, like just run it back, give him another chance. Everyone was like, it just depended which position you preferred. So look, if you're an actual dickhead, and we might get to this, you were going, replace Upset and Ball, because you don't know, you literally, people say, I know nothing about League. You may as well not even have your eyes open. You may as well be Helen Keller analysing League of Legends,
Thorin,
if you want those 2 people.
Thorin, that's your mistake. Since when do we actually analyze
League
of Legends using our eyes?
I saw you saw that from our video, that legendary fucking comment where the guy basically like was sort of like, how would we use our eyes to know who was good? Which is like, holy shit, to even process that like almost gives me an aneurysm, like blood's coming out.
That just shows like what is the even point of having these fucking shows? Like this is what we're met with. We spend 2 hours discussing the intricacies of the game, and then like what we're met with is like, wait, you're using your eyes to determine what the fuck is going on? Like I just fucking put my dick on my screen and just like slap it around, and wherever it ends up, that's the player that I end up cutting. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what community have we actually cultivated here?
The problem is, I think everyone else thought, right, it's just which player. They're replacing top mid or support. But the joke is, if they really did think someone had to go, traditionally in European sports, I'm sorry, it's the coach that goes first. So I actually think that's part of why they fired Yamato, because sad thing is, because he's not French, it appeases the French fans. Like, at least we didn't fire one of your players. And then also, the other reason that what's funny is, though, I'll spin it backwards. Unlike football, Dom, this is actually by definition the worst firing, even if I don't look at what you're talking about with the things I think he did in the game. Because, bro, they still have to pay him, and the replacement isn't a coach as good. It's mad. Because think about this. If I bench one of these players, Dom, let's say Targamas, I don't know what his contract is. Let's say it's a decent contract. If I bench him, yeah, I have to pay him. But the player I bring in might play better than him. That's not even a fucking hope with the amount of getting replaced. Like, the guy coming in isn't even another head coach, guys. It's like an assistant coach. Like, it's someone who isn't even supposed to be in this job. And they're just paying Yamato to sit on the bench and not help. What's this?
I have a question, because a lot of people were saying things like, oh, well, like, shouldn't the coach be the one that helps Targamas talk in game? Well, what about the fucking coach that they have right now that coached him in LFL? Like, so that guy, by definition, in your mind, that guy must have failed even harder than Yamato Cannon, because he had a longer period of time at an earlier period, and he did not fix the issue. Like, also, it just doesn't make sense.
He can just go to the guy and literally speak to him in French, by the way, guys. Like, so if it's any sort of a comfort issue or culture, it shouldn't have a problem with the Renner guy, whatever his fucking name is, right? No, I'm with you, because the other part to this is this, Dom. This is almost like the XL one last year. The joke is, someone in these orgs really fucking hates Targamas, mate. Because It's only because these voice comms got released from Excel and now this team that we know this motherfucker doesn't talk. Think how rare it is, Dom. Me and you sometimes might get like a player might tell us, oh, this player does or doesn't talk. But even then, you don't always know, is he biased? Is he thinking of just like a brief time period? We've just heard the comms. If you hear those comms, what did you think? Were you actually shocked? There's two things, dude. One, the guy Targamas doesn't talk. And then two, mate, I bet everyone before that thought Bo had language issues. Dude, he's talking all the time. Like, it's actually the opposite of what people implied almost.
I mean, it was super unnatural to me to watch Targamas play because, like, for example, I mean, I've played on all different like types of teams. I obviously played as a pro, and then like recently, I even did like a mixed rank tournament. I did the Dantas Invitational, which was a mixed rank tournament that incorporated like plat players, diamond players, challenger players, master players, and we like competed in that. And even players that have never played competitive before that are like platinum or emerald, when they get jumped on by a champion, it's very common to just say like, hey, this guy is killing me. Like, that is a very obvious thing to say, like, oh, the enemy guy is trying to kill me right now, like, come fucking help me. It's so weird to see somebody just walk up when his whole team is like they're not on the same screen. Obviously, if everyone's watching the same thing, that's a different story. But if you have people that are like mid and you have like somebody who's rotating from bot and like Bo is the only one on your screen, Cabo's not even there as well. If you have this type of setup, in what world do you get jumped by an Akali and Akali starts like ulting you and like going and you don't immediately say like, yo, he's going on me? Like, how is that just so, that's not natural for you to just say, yo, this guy is going on me. So everyone knows, pan your camera, look at the situation. Can we help this guy? Whatever. It was very eerie to watch somebody just like walk up, throw his arrow, die. Like, doesn't say, hey, I'm like, hey, can we move? Like, I'm looking to keep them here. I'm going to throw my arrow. Like, Akali's on me. Just these types of things not being communicated just were so strange to me. It's very, very, very weird to see a player not naturally feel like they need to speak when they're getting like killed on stage by an assassin. Like, and then like the information he gives after is like, Akali has no flash. It's like, yes, we know he has no flash because he's playing with fucking Ignite TP. He, by definition, when we loaded into the game, we knew he had no flash. Yeah. It's like, yeah, Akali no flash, Akali no. Yes, okay, nice, bro. What are you gonna tell me next? Like the fucking jungler has like no TP. Like, what the fuck type of information are we getting? It's actually so
on that one. I'm helping, so you know. Yeah. My final word I'll say on that one is this. After listening to the voice comms and then watching games where Targamas never ever fucking lands an ult and where Sakan just stands there watching people while they're out doing abilities, all I want to know is this. Why haven't they done the obvious transfer to Iron Wolves for these players? Like, these could be your next hot, let's put it this way. You'll definitely get some wins, but they may be traded, if you get what I'm saying there. Give me a fucking break. Like, this is criminal. Like, the joke is, like, I almost couldn't have believed the comms were that bad. Yeah, that's why after all this, the idea, you see the drafts, actually some pretty decent drafts, even in losing games. You see the early games. Remember, dude, the first like 5-6 games, they were always in the fucking game. They were always in like the first 10-15 minutes. Sometimes they even had leads. To watch all that and then go, it's that fucking Swedish guy, Yamato. He needs to get the fuck out of this. He's the whole problem with this. Like, that's just so insane to me. So whatever. Let's talk about the teams that are actually.
Well, I mean, it's also partly because of the information that's going on the stream. Like when they won, I think it was the 8th game. So my editor is actually French. He's North African, but he's French. Okay. Like he has like French background, and he gave me translations of what Yamato was saying on stream. And after they won the game,
for something, right?
After he won the game, the first thing was like, oh my god, finally a good draft. Like that was like one of the things that he said, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you watching? And it's all these weird narratives that people have in the West where they're like, oh, it's a bad draft because like Lucian is a bad champion. It's like, no, Lucian is like broken. Lucian is fucking
LPL boys. I know.
Yes, it's one of the strongest champions in the game. Like, and Upset is actually pretty good at Lucian. So I don't even think you can make the argument that it's like they don't play Lucian well. Like the team just ended up losing those early games. Dude, Yamato is drafting like a Azir Lucian Nami, and people are like, oh, all he drafts is a Azir Lucian Nami. It's like, dude, those are just good champions right now. Like, I don't know what you want. Should he just draft bad champions so it just shows like, ooh, I've got a new coach flair. I look at how much I developed over the last year. Now I'm just drafting random bullshit that doesn't make sense. Azir Lucian Nami, Azir Lucian Milio, like these are just strong fucking picks. The fact they can't get it together in game is, I don't know. It's just beyond me that the way that people view it is like, oh, it's a bad draft. I hate the fucking idea that champions like Lucian are just bad. Like, you just shouldn't play them. It's like, no, you should just play them better. Like, you should keep on playing them until you fucking get them. Obviously, if you're super late in the season and it's not been working for an extended period of time, maybe you have to band-aid things and you have to just accept that you can't play OP things. But dude, we got to be playing Azir. We got to be playing Lucian, Nami. Like, we have to play a call. Like, these are just strong champions in the fucking game. Just fucking play them and don't get so triggered by 1 or 2 losses that you give up on things that are powerful within the game. You're giving away free like ammunition to the enemy team.
By the way, that's why when people see me like diss Karmine Corp, they're like, but why Yamato? Like, first of all, as a random aside, if someone has an actual famous alias and you as their fan already refer to them by their first name, like, yo, what about Camille? Why are you saying that about Camille? And you don't know the guy at all. You are a fucking mark. Like, you are the guy, I assume, where if I go into a back room in your house, there's just every cutout of this guy and a million printouts, everyone, and like a life-size fucking waifu pillow with his face on it that you fuck every night. Like, that's how deranged you are. And then also, as Dom just said, you're all acting like he's like like, oh, he just sits back and does nothing. He's just a chill streamer. It's not his fault. He is literally on his stream in the French language, inciting the fan base that the fucking coach was the reason why the team lost the game. He is doing that on stream. So I don't give a fuck. This guy is one like the owners of the team, guys. Like, that is egregious as fuck. Like, Reggie might be an utter dickhead, but he kept it in the VOD review room, mate. He didn't just come on Twitter like, tell you what, if this fucking Loco keeps fucking up like that, I might have to take the reins of him. But anyway, fans, don't attack Loco. Give me a break. Like, you basically caused all this backlash. So I'll tell you what, if it actually goes badly now, and the joke is, I can't remember who said this, but the saddest part of all is this, Dom. I bet actually the joke is because they only played 9 fucking games, even if the next coach is worse, they could trip over and be better than that. Remember, they could have won some of these games even. So, like, I'll bet if they win like 3 games next split, everyone will go, yeah, justified. But the joke is maybe Yamato would have won 6, you morons. You know what I mean? Because I have a vibe that's coming, Dom. It's almost impossible to have a split as bad as this. So if they do better, don't you think everyone's just going to think it was justified? I bet that'll be the angle on it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the things that bothers me the most, because it's almost impossible for them to like do worse as a team. So like, let's say they go
the same team, aren't they? They've got the experience of these 9 games. It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and like they have good play. Like Bo is just trying to figure out how to fucking win games with this team. Yes. If you saw the way that he approached things, it's like, okay, he went like with a Jax versus Xin Zhao thing where he like scales better. And then he went to like other ideas where he's like, okay, maybe I need to play something hyper carry like Lilia. Maybe I just play something like a 1v9 on Lilia brand. That didn't work. Then by the end, he's like, okay, I just need to play the strong like early game or the strong junglers right now in the meta like Xin and Maokai. And that ended up working towards the end. The players playing together for longer and having more experience on the LEC stage together is probably going to make them better. Like, regardless of coaching, and all of the foundation that was laid by Yamato that might pay off in the future, like, it will just be completely credited to the fucking new coach. So if they go like 3-6 or like 4-5 or something next split, and they're at least in groups, people are gonna be like, well, it shows that they're just a better team without Yamato. It's so fucking annoying, because one of the things is like, you don't know what the actual coach is doing behind the scenes. Like that is obviously part of it. But then when you have the things that we could test, like, okay, how are the drafts looking? How does the early game look like? Those are the things that Yamato succeeded on. So if the team gets a couple more wins and the players just visually play better, because I don't think that they'll get more wins and it'll be like suddenly their macro is fucking fixed late game and the players still look horrible individually. I think if they do get more wins, it'll look like how it looked in these last 2 games, where it's like, oh, like nice play by Sa. Oh, Cabochard won a lane for once. Oh, Targamas had a good game on Bard. The players will just play a little bit better, and then they won't just throw the massive advantages that Bo was giving them in the early game. I mean, if you look at any type of stats, K-Corp was one of the best early game teams in the LEC. Sure. They were just by far the worst late game team, mid to late game team in the LEC, so they would lose every single lead that they got.
Yes. I'll also say as well, I think the other thing that really annoys me about that situation is if you think about this team going into the future splits, it's like there's even a world where, like, okay, I'll give you the angle. You know, Yamato himself, once he knew he'd been fired, did that comment on stream where he basically sort of wink, wink told you, like, before the split, they were doing well in scrims. They were really good, right? People will know I hate people who count scrim books, right? But it's the context that you count them in. What I hate is this, Dom, when you're actually, like, in the table, the 5th best team, but you're like, hey, you should think of me as the 2nd best team because secretly in scrims I dominate. And it's like, yeah, but I don't give a fuck about that. That's irrelevant to this conversation. We're talking about how good are you. I'll tell you what, though, Dom, if you win loads of scrims and you're in the table the worst team, that is the relevant time to tell me you win scrims. Because I'll tell you what, the only teams that can do that are like failed teams of good players where it goes wrong. There's no such thing. Like, here's the thing, you know, this Mad Lions team now that kind of like no one expected anything, but they sort of did better. There's never been a time ever where a team like that was like, oh, you know, they're a 90% win rate in script. Never happened ever in history. So the point is, it's like the Vitality one last year. This actually implies that the players aren't all total bombs, guys. They can't be. Otherwise, they could not win all those scrims. Like, so it doesn't mean the team works, but it can't actually be as bad as it is. Because I hate the retcon. The retcon's always what kills me. It's not even the analysis. It's when the retcon is like, see, upset was always the worst all the time, always every game, including the ones. Well, then why would we ever have hyped him, you cretin? We could all point out when he's bad. You're like, he's never good. So that angle just kills me because, like, it's obvious that the scrim angle means there was something there. I can even see why they wanted to give this team a try.
I mean, also just think about how scrims operate. If you've ever played scrims in your life, which none of these fans actually have, but if you've ever actually like competed in your life, you know that the thing that is most transferable from scrims onto stage is early game. So if K-Corp has really good early game every single time, you can see why they would win a lot of scrims, because teams play a lot worse mid to late game in scrims than they do on stage. On stage, people are way more passive. They slow the game down. They try to contest vision in normal ways. Whereas in scrims, the way that you get Baron is like one guy gets caught and then you just go to Baron and you get Baron and you win the game. Like that, people are way more loose with the way that they position, with the way that they play around people missing in lanes, TP advantages, all the different things that could happen to like end a game. That all that stuff is way more loose in scrims. So yeah, I mean, I can imagine them winning a lot of scrims because they have the best early game. Like, you watch Bo play solo queue. This guy's dropping like 10 to 20 fucking kills every single game in solo queue. Can you not imagine him doing that same shit in a scrim if people are like respecting him slightly less? And then you go on stage versus K-Corp and you're like, okay, just don't die to Bo. Just do not die to Bo and we win the game. We'll win the game later on. We have better carry. Just do not die to Bo and we win. And that's what teams do. Like, he'll still get leads, but it's like, it's a 1 or a 2 kill lead. It's not the fucking 7 kill Xin Zhao showing up with the Titanic Hydra at 11 minutes and 1v5ing a fucking Drake fight. So if you watch how they play, it's completely logical. It's not like you watch them play and then you see, like, you hear that they win scrims and there's no connection there at all. Like, it 100% makes sense that they would win scrims with the way that they look.
And then what we'll do is we'll transition now to talk about some of the teams that are still in the LEC by talking about some more drama. So what's brilliant now, Dom, is here's another thing you'll notice about the French crowd, particularly, and the Spanish crowd. It's those two particular fan bases more than any others at the moment, which is it's not even anymore, Dom, that you have to diss them to get them mad. If you compliment them in the wrong way, that's just as bad as a diss. So because I had the gall, Dom, it's actually a very interesting point. You won't know this because it's a Counter-Strike related point. I'll make it very briefly. Basically, what made me think about this was in Counter-Strike in the last few months, there's a team, it's actually the team that won the major like a year and a bit ago, the Rio one. There was one where they were called Outsiders, but it's because of the sanctions. Virtus Pro. It's a Russian team. And the way they play in Counter-Strike is almost anti-Counter-Strike, Dom. They play super passive. They save all the time. They run the clock all the way down. And basically what their style is, it's just really annoying. Like, even if you're better than them, it's really annoying. So because it's frustrating, you can imagine they can grind out wins doing this, or they can sort of get wins when they shouldn't, or teams like sort of know what you're supposed to do going in, but because they play so unique compared to other teams, actually people go like, fuck, I thought I had him. And it's like, there's a million people with that story of like, but I should have won. Like, I was in position. And so the point I made was this: I never ever, Dom, blame the Virtus Pro team for playing that way, because it gets results. They actually do good wins as a result. I always blame the other teams. But if I look at the wider scene, like the top 10 in Counter-Strike, I always say this: I want a team like that to be like the 8th best team. I want them to be a dark horse with a unique style, and it's more like they test and gatekeep the top teams. And if you're like the top team who can beat them, then you get to pass through and be the champion. But if that team is 2nd or 3rd in the league, Dom, we're in fucking trouble, because they're not playing traditional high-level, ideal, optimized Counter-Strike. So you can see, obviously, even if you don't know Counter-Strike, where I'm going with this one. This is why I made this tweet about BDS, because the joke is, I actually will say, even though I don't think the BDS players are significantly better individually, a bunch of them have played better than I expected. I actually thought this would be this player. Adam got exposed. The opposite, probably the best top player there. You look at them as a team, like, they've all pretty much played well. Even the Ice Guy's somewhat integrated. He's not crowd shot, but he's played well within his context. He clearly doesn't have the same carry role. But you look at this team, Dom, what my point is this: if this really is the second or third best team, and right now, guys, they're not only guaranteed top 3. I think they're going to be second. I think they're going to make the final and they're going to play G2. Right? If this is the second best team in the LEC, then the LEC is in fucking trouble. And I saw that when Nook came to me. By the way, Nook is a fucking bozo. If you don't know, guys, I know the actual coaching staff in BDS. I know some of the things they do in that team and who he is. Now they pick his champion, but he doesn't, as usual, like a bozo player. If they don't like you, they decide you can't know anything about the scene. You can't have any connections, and so they do that thing where they try and punk you publicly, and they're like, hey, what am I bad at? And this is where you just see that this guy is incredibly well coached, because he doesn't have a fucking 2 brain cells to rub together, Dom. Like, he actually tried to imply for real that BDS has like really good laning, like everything was good basically according to him. Like, his logic was like, what, so individually you're having a problem in laning? It's like, yes, all those things, because I'm actually not dissing you. What I'm saying is your team's doing everything you could with what you have, but you just shouldn't be second. It's not your fault. It's actually the fault, by the way, of Fnatic, fucking Karmine Corp, Vitality, SK Gear. It's not your fault, but it's bad for the league. Because I agree with what you said, mate. The problem they have is this. What they do at the moment is awesome. Like I say, like a punish style. Other teams get in these positions. I think we have the lead on them. It's fucking a dragon fight, but they just lose. They inexplicably lose. They get out team fought. Here's the obvious problem, Dom. Do like almost happened last year and pop these motherfuckers in the Mad Lion spot at MSI, and they are going to get murdered, mate. How the fuck would they even get to an objective against BLG or Gen G? Like, they wouldn't even, I'm not exaggerating, they would get absolutely murked. In fact, the worst thing that could happen to them is they get that spot as this team. Like, I think they're in trouble, mate. I'm amazed they actually, of all the things to get mad at me at, I'm amazed on that one, because I'm sort of complimenting you for all the things you are, and I'm just pointing out what you aren't, and then you're going, I'm actually all those as well. It's like, sit down, Nuclear Int. Your coach wouldn't even say that you're bozo. Come on, give me your take on this.
I mean, the main thing is, I understand what Nook was saying, but the way he just phrased it was wrong. Like, they have good laning. Like, their players can all lane, but the laning phase is bad. Like he didn't make the distinction. Like, he said laning phase, and laning phase is the phase of the game, the time period. It's a measurement of time when people are laning. It's not the actual laning itself. It's how long the people normally lane within the game. So 0 to 14 is by definition the laning phase of the game. And that is where they are weak. Some of them can lane well. I think Nuck on his champions, he can lane well. He can play Azir, Orianna, whatever. And he'll lane into anyone. Yeah, I mean, he just plays his lane like he's gonna be like fine up CS. He won't like die. He won't like lose flash when he doesn't need to. But the way that they play together around lanes that are winning is almost non-existent. They don't have any solid early game plan. When you watch top teams play, when you watch T1 play, when you watch BLG play, and you see how they play around their winning lanes, they make it so the enemy team doesn't get to play the game. Like, if you have a pushing bot lane, the example I always give is BLG has this very common set play. And what they do is they play one of the strong early bot lanes. They draft heavily. They prioritize heavily for bot lane in draft. They play a bot lane that has push. And then they time the wave crash with when their jungler can invade enemy bot side. So Shun will do 3 camps, invade enemy bot side. BLG will crash the wave at the same time that Shun has the ability to invade. Shun will either get the bot side camps, or if the jungler has already done the camps, then he has no camps on that side of the map. They will force the enemy jungler out of that jungle, and then they will just 3v2 harass the bot lane, dive the bot lane. They'll just make the bot lane unplayable for the enemy bot lane. And this is something that they can replicate every single game by having strong early jungler and pushing 2v2. BDS has no set plays like that. They can draft lanes that win, but like the lane will just like play on its own. The jungler will be doing his own thing. The mid will be doing its own thing. Like, they don't have any connectivity between the lanes, and they don't have any ways that they use their jungler to really make it unplayable for the enemy, which is why they end up behind so often. So I do think the other parts of their game are strong. Like, their drafts are in general good. Like, they have really drafts where they
coach team, mate.
Yeah, I mean, they have good drafts. I mean, it depends on what you consider coaching, because I consider like early game really important in coaching, but they have good drafts, and their setups have always been extremely good. They get to objectives. They know where to ward. They're there on time. They don't make mistakes. They are very good at reading when somebody is out of position, or figuring out how they need to win the situation. If somebody needs to mark a flanker, when they can engage, if they should start the objective, if they should let the enemy team start the objective, all those things are really good. And that's why they win so many games. And for the record, like, yeah, I mean, I would probably, if I had to choose between being good mid to late game or only good early game, yes, of course, I would choose being good mid to late game. But the problem is, the reason that I agreed with you, and the reason why I'm like, yeah, I don't feel great about watching them, is early game matters a fuck ton, and you won't be able to just out set up teams that are better than you internationally. Even if you might have slightly better ideas of setups, they're going to be so far ahead that they're not going to let you do that. You're going to be playing on an even playing field when it comes to everyone's knowledge in the game at those points. So when I'm watching BDS, I mean, yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. It's not good for a team that has bad early game consistently to be one of the best teams in the league. We've seen it before, and the comparison that I made was 2017 TSM. How often did you see 2017
Yes.
TSM just have better players? Like they had, they had Bjergsen double lift at the time, and they're just showing up to an objective. They're down like 1 to 2K. They out team fight at the objective and they win the game. Like, I don't like watching teams like that because I feel like without a certain level of early game dominance, especially in your region, right? Because you got to consider that LEC is a weaker region than LPL and LCK. So if you're not able to play early game versus like Rogue, like you're losing early games to Rogue, you're losing early games to GiantX. What the fuck are you going to do when you play against even teams that are like Hanwha Life? Like, let's say Hanwha Life made it to MSI, or Hanwha Life makes it to Worlds and you play against them, or you play against, like this weaker version of JDG. You're still going to get fucking murked. Like you need to be able to play early game at a better level. And if they improve that, sure. I mean, they could be the best team in Europe. Like if they had like one of the top early games in Europe, I think they would be the best team in Europe. But it's just not there right now. And I view that point as really important, which is why I made the tweet where it's like, not only did I do the eye test of actually watching all the games back and being like, okay, I formed this opinion when I was watching the games. Was I incorrect? Like, let me just rewatch it again. Yes, they lost almost every single early game. But then also you look at all the stats, and all the stats are indicative of a team that is weak early game as well. So it's like when you have both things, it's like, what are you good at early game? The individual laning is the only thing that I could say. And I don't view individual laning as that valuable when you as a team don't know how to do anything with those individual lanes.
Normally I say that the reason I never look at Twitch chat is I actually think it's sort of like it almost makes even people who read it stupider. It's like it collectively brings the whole. It's like essentially you bring the human spirit down by commenting stupid things there. I've found the one rare time ever I might have actually gained some value from reading Twitch chat because I saw an idiot attempt to take what I just said, an intelligent person's nuanced analysis, and after they spit it through the fucking sort of like cheese grater that is their mind, this is the shit, the utter tepid nonsense that came out the other side, and it perfectly anti-frames what I said in a way that'll make my point. So the person said this, Dom. They were like, well, the reason why they're upset is because you're saying the only reason that they are good is because everyone else is bad. No, that's not at all what I said. If you listen, what I said is this: they are good for XYZ reasons, nothing to do with other people. Things like they can win fights from behind. They actually don't even need to get an early start. They draft pretty well. They have the best top laner in fucking Europe. They have an above average mid laner. Shio's probably having his second best split. The Ice Guy knows how to do his job and not be crown shot. Labrov actually seems to continue to improve. His champion pool's good. Vision control. They seem like a generally well coached team. But what was the reason I said I complained? It wasn't that they are bad. I said it's because they're at the top. The problem, I even said it in the fucking statement, that I want them to play identically, but be fourth or fifth. Then it will mean the top teams in Europe are really fucking good by inference. Instead, they are actually at the top because of how bad the other teams are. In part, but if they played shit and the other teams did that, they wouldn't be at the top, would they? So you've completely missed it as usual. If you're someone like that, mate, don't even attempt to pick up a fork. You will end up with one eye. Just use a spoon. Stick with the spoon. That is all. You were raised with the spoon. Die with the spoon. Right. Anyway, here's what I actually want to get to more importantly. In light of all that, believe it or not, Dom, I actually think there's a world. Listen, bear in mind, it's double a limb. I don't think BDS can actually win the LEC because you probably have to beat G2 twice. But I don't even think it's impossible they could fluke one series win over them, mate. I know it's BO5, but bro, G2, they're always going to give you a game at the moment. They're always going to give you at least one game where you got a chance. I feel like it's not even, like, as much as I've just said all that, the reason why I'm making that statement is I actually think BDS is showing up the rest of Europe. They're making everyone else look silly. Like, G2 obviously has the killer players. It should be impossible to lose, but fucking hell, they're trying, mate. They're trying to lose these games, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, G2 has issues with how they play early game now as well, to be honest. I mean, they're still one of the best early game teams in Europe, but it doesn't feel the same. And when you hear what the players say and what the coaches say, I mean, the whole idea is that going into this year, they felt like the early game was really good, but they are trying to like work on their mid and late game, so they focus more on that. But it's like anything else. If you've lost the early game, like then it doesn't even matter if you're good mid to late game as well.
A million times, you know, when the fan goes, "Why can't you just play 7 champions at world class level?" Because the second you start focusing on the other ones, guys, the one that you take focus off becomes worse. They're not at static level, like you're saying. You didn't like power up like Super Saiyan level. Like, but Super Saiyan level 1 on early game. So now I practice elsewhere. If you practice elsewhere, that will degrade. It will atrophy, right? And it has happened, by the way. I know what you mean, Dom. They're still good early game, but the difference is early game just won them the entire game last year, right? They would just accelerate the whole thing and just be over. Like, their mid game's mad fucking sketchy right now.
Yeah, their mid game is pretty sketchy, and then also like a lot of their drafts are pretty sketchy. I mean, the game 1 draft versus Fnatic, I think they got murked in draft. And they ended up just like stomping the entire game. So I don't even know. Like, I don't know what's going on in Europe a lot of the time. Blind pick Zach is just taking over. I guess BB can just blind pick Zach and there's just no counterplay in Europe. But I just don't even believe that's true. I feel like it's because people didn't view Zach as a blind pick. It kind of came from like Zeus picked Zach into Cassante and people were like, oh, Zach can play into Cassante. That's actually a pretty decent matchup. What else could Zach be good into? And, you know, people started blinding it. And now this week, I feel like it'll be worse when people actually figure out how to play into Zach, because I'm watching Zach lane phase and people don't even like remember that you're supposed to step on the blobs when you're laning against
God,
it.
right.
And people don't even play the Zach minigame.
Many years, right? I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the minigame that exists within the champion, people are not even on the same page where they're like, this is like what the lane is now about. So I feel like it's one of those champions that eventually should be exposed. Like I can't imagine that Aatrox is unplayable into Zach. I can't imagine that a champion like Aatrox would not just completely murder a champion like Zach if you just think about how both kits actually work and what both champions do. And Aatrox has always been good into tanks for the same reason. I mean, Aatrox is playable into Udyr, which is more oppressive in lane than a Zach. So I'm just waiting for people to actually catch on to like what Zach does. I'll be very surprised if Zach just ends up continually taking over. I mean, the other thing is, when you watch G2 versus, or when you think about G2 versus BDS, which is the best of 5 that's coming up, I mean, Adam's champion pool is pretty fucking good against
right?
like Zach. I mean, they have to ban Darius at least to play Zach, I would say.
No, that's actually the other thing that's interesting, right? Of all the times for this to be like the new tech, if there's anyone who's going to test it, surely it's Adam. Dude, this is actually the best possible test. If it works, by the way, on this series, then maybe it does work and this will see with it. This surely is the series where, I mean, if you're the BDS coaching staff, you're almost certainly just looking at every possible draft that involves Zach versus Olaf versus Darius. That's all of it. All of Adam's champions, probably, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I would say you're looking at that, and then you're also just trying to figure out. I mean, for me, I think the main thing for BDS is like, how legit are you top lane on Adam's picks that he picked recently? Like the Rumble, for example. Are you really confident on Rumble? How confident are you on Cassante? If they're really confident on those picks, then I think that you just like, you could just ban Zach and just play the other fucking the game between the OPs because Adam looks comfortable on it.
Oh, by the way, if Adam actually does in this series carry like a Rumble game, I will be even more impressed. Like, people don't get it. Like, I always give it up if someone actually does it. I don't have to like someone. I have a unique skill for some reason that I don't have to like you to say you're good at something. I don't know why that makes me a unique human, but it does. So, like, he is actually the best top player right now, mate. If I just looked over all the games played so far, if I had the nameplate off, I'd have to conclude he was best. Now, look, I'd still, with the nameplates up here, as your usual champion pool, but it's working. It's fucking working. So I'll tell you what, if he can actually carry a Rumble game, then he actually gets that status for real. Because, again, if you aren't watching the Asian regions, the best top players, when they get a Rumble guy, carry the whole fucking game. Like, they can be so strong on that champ. It's bonkers. So I want to see it. It'll be wild if they make another final.
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll probably make a final. I guess I assume that G2 will just beat BDS, but who knows? I mean, G2 might be the best team. They could drop a best of 5 to BDS and come back and win.
Yes.
They don't look clean enough where I give them credit for automatically winning. So, you have that, and then I guess Fnatic versus BDS would be pretty interesting. I would like to see like best of 5s between all of those teams. I would like to see like a G2 Fnatic best of 5, a BDS Fnatic best of 5, a BDS G2 best of 5. I just want to see all those teams interact versus each other.
eSportsBet, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix, have a special limited time offer for the Chinese New Year. Their red envelope frenzy, because obviously culturally they give out red envelopes in China with money and other things as prizes for kids. What you can do is, for a limited time only, by depositing 100 USDT, a user will receive an extra 100 USDT, so 100% match, 100,000 ESC, the eSportsBet coin, which you can actually use to make bets and predictions, and if you get enough, convert into USD. USDT, a risk-free bonus quarter on any League of Legends Spring Tier 1 game, so basically guaranteed cash back. Every account can apply once for this particular promotion. You can get the risk-free bet is obviously a great angle if you've never done a bet at all. And you can check out the ESC thing and the ESC promotions elsewhere. So, by the way, before it runs out, go ahead and do it. The bonus, I will say, the deposit bonus is capped at 100 USDT. It's only applicable for USDT. And each account can claim this, but you can only claim it once. And there's a level of turnover to be unlocked at some point in time. ESC is the free-to-play token, if people don't know. For more details or to contact the customer support and find out, there's a button on the site, as you can see. Go to esportsbet.io.
I don't think there's any other team that I'm actually that impressed with in Europe right now.
We can get to the others now. What we'll do is we'll leave that to the end because actually that's a good team to talk about. Let's talk about the other ones because all the rest of them are either hopeless. Like, I'm just going to say it right now, Dom. I don't care whether they lose or win these series. Like, Mad Lions and fucking Team Heretics aren't going to be going to the best of 5 part of the tournament. Like, that's not happening. Like, even if they win this next series, like, these teams are irrelevant. After that, you can maybe say, like, who knows what Vitality can do. So pick one of those. Which one do you want to go with? Mad Lions or Team Heretics or Vitality? Which of the three do you want to start on?
Let's talk about Mad Lions.
Let's do it.
Because I've obviously went to war with the Spanish over this team for months now. And let's just talk about this because we haven't even been able to discuss this because I haven't been on the show. But the idea of Mad Lions, like what I originally said that triggered all the Spanish fans, where I was where I said the lineup looks like shit. Obviously, in comparison to the lineup they just had. So yes, exactly. They were a team that was top 2, top 3 throughout the entire fucking year. They were the only team outside of G2 that actually won a split. They had Niski, Karzi, Hillsong, Chasey on this team. Those are the players that were removed. In what world is this lineup better than the other lineup? And what people always tell you, it's like, yeah, but it's like a rookie lineup. It takes time to develop. You cannot tell me that Friscawi will ever be better than Niski in LEC and have me believe you based off what I've seen. Like, I don't see why this guy would suddenly be one of the top mid laners in the LEC just based off like his career. Like, no one gave him a shot before this. And I feel like the only reason that he's there is because he was on the Movistar Riders team that had the bot lane, the coach, and this mid lane coming in together. And he's part of like the collective group. This guy is nowhere close to as good. And when you watch Mad Lions, I think the biggest problem that I have is that the two weakest players, in my opinion, are the AD carry and the mid laner. And when in Europe does a team ever end up having any level of success where two of the worst players on the team or the two worst players on the team are mid and AD?
Even though I'm going to go with LCS for the example. Dude, remember when they had last year's Team Liquid fucking one before APA, when it was Harry and Yorn? You couldn't do anything. If mid and AD suck, you cannot do anything. Because here's the maddest thing, Dom. This is where, it's a shame we hadn't talked about this before. Because you know the one that got me in trouble? It's not even Friscoy, because the joke is even Mad Lions fans, because he's not Spanish, don't bother spamming about him. They just pretend he doesn't exist until one game he has 7 kills. And then they go, I told you he's good. And then they just shut up and go talk about the bot lane. But believe it or not, Tom, the one that's got me in trouble is the fucking ADC super. People keep telling me that I'm the one who can't see the game and he's like some top fucking prospect. Like, bro, go watch these games. Like, he's a bottom half ADC, if not like what, the 9th or 10th best ADC in the league. He's not a top ADC at all. Remember, fucking Upset is the one on Karmine Corp. Like, he's not a bomb, fucking comp. These aren't like dog shit players. This super guy, listen, I said it before, unless it's with Mad Lions as part of this core, I don't think he's going to in the future be an LEC player, mate. I think he's going to have a year or so, and then maybe someone else Spanish even replace him. Like, I don't hate on him. I can see as a combo they're all right as a bot lane, but that support's way better in my opinion. I think he actually should be paired with the better ADC, mate. He looks good.
Yeah, I think Alvaro has been really impressive. I think he's been one of the best supports so far in LEC. But the issue that I have with them is, okay, if you think about the fact that they are bottom 4 in the playoffs right now, even if you consider Fnatic like strong, maybe they could be better. Maybe Mad Lions is better than Vitality. They could finish like an outside top 4. But why do people think that this team loses games? Because it seems like their early games are good. Their coordination is good. It's just mid to late game, their carries make mistakes. Even in games they win, their carries make really big mistakes. I mean, go look at the Fnatic game that they played at the end of regular season, where he just dies with Xyle and the whole game just like almost ends. Fnatic is literally ending the game on Nexus before they're able to, kill the whole team. And then they run back and end the game and kill the enemy team's Nexus. But if you watch how Supa plays, he makes a lot of pretty big mistakes. I mean, there was the game versus, I believe it was SK earlier on in the split where he's playing Lucian. He literally just dashes directly into Renekton that's on a ward, dashes into melee range, gets like fucking one shot, and the whole fight is lost. This guy makes a lot of mistakes. I think Merwin is pretty good.
Yeah,
I think Elyoya
cool.
and Alvaro are the best players on the team, but I think the carries aren't good enough to like even come close to winning a split of LEC.
Yeah, by the way, the actual joke of that, like you say, is if you actually just pick Mad Lions fans, those two players, top and support, you can actually brag. Like, you know what? I had no expectations for those players at all, and they actually are. Dude, they're upper half players. Like, I'm with you on the Alvaro one, definitely. And the Merwin guy, when he has his games and his champion pool, is fucking really interesting. Like, this guy actually, I can see why he's in LEC. The joke is these players maybe could be in another team, but why brag about the whole team? Why brag about all the players? Like, this is where, as a fan, you give away that you're just a fan. You just like them irrationally. You don't like them for specific. I only like people. Here's the thing, guys. Unless I have a personal connection, I only like players if they're good at the game. I don't. Why would I like players who are below average? I wouldn't, would I? And you said it right as well. They're doing the most unfair thing. If you're talking to analysts who do week to week and season to season, we have to judge them on what they had and what they could have had. So not only, Dom, do they not have the contender like they used to, but they could obviously have had a way better lineup. They right now could have this exact same team with Abadage mid. They could have this exact same team.
How about with Niski? Imagine if Niski was just still on the team and Elyoya and Niski didn't have this like ridiculous beef together.
Or Crowny or fucking any of the AD6 could be there. A million of Neon. There's a million people. And by the way, wouldn't this team win games?
What if they just kept the same mid lane and AD carry?
You can still have 3 Spanish players. Keep fucking AD, keep fucking top jungle and support, and just put a different mid and AD in, and we got a good team. Then we can actually do something, guys.
I mean, I think they would. I think literally if they just kept the same players, who was Carzzy and Niski in mid and AD, and they just added in Merwin and they added in Alvaro, I think they would have just been a better team.
Yeah.
Which is the players that they had, but they have this idea of consistency. And like the other thing is these players get a lot of credit for showing up and being like better than rookies should be, I guess, macro-wise. But the whole idea of the team was that they should have had a massive advantage in that area because of the fact that they brought up the same coach with 3 players from the Movistar Riders team, and Elyoya has experience working with that coach before. So that was supposed to be one of the points of strength. And it feels like mid to late game, they do kind of have like ERL macro. They do kind of throw games mid to late game pretty consistently, even though they get a lot of early leads.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. To actually frame Mad Lions reasonably, I think everyone's been full of shit because you all started the split, people who said Mad Lions were going to be good, using the logic Dom just said of like, well, since they promoted most of the Movistar Riders and their coach, they will start with pre-existing synergy. Well, then why are they so bad late game? Why have they, by the way, faded as the league's gone on? And I'm just going to say it right now. If they lose to fucking GiantX, then forget about this team, because if the first split's bad, in light of what you just said about their history, then why would the next split be better? Look, I'll give you the rookie angle. True. Rookie, maybe super doesn't play as bad. But fundamentally, this team isn't going to suddenly level up. In fact, precisely because they've played together a million years, it's actually the reason why, Dom, I actually was really, really out when I saw how bad the French players in Karmine Corp are. It's like, bro, you guys just played together for a year and you're this bad. Like, why would I have any hope you can improve it? Like, you've actually had a year to prep for this. There's other lineups are brand new and they're walking in the league and performing it. This is fucking dog shit.
I mean, you also have to understand that the season portion doesn't actually matter that much. Just because Mad Lions finished 1 game up on like Heretics, Vitality, and GiantX, I mean, they lost to GiantX in the last week. Yep. And if you look at Mad Lions games, I mean, they had the game just in the last week. Both of their wins could have easily been losses. They had the Fnatic game where they massively threw. Fnatic was literally like hitting the fucking Nexus. And then they had the game versus Vitality where Hilly played one of his worst pike games of all time, where he just ran it down, even though his team had a massive lead. So this team could have easily finished something like 3-6 and been solid in 8th place. I'm not convinced by what I saw in the season portion. So we'll see. I mean, they lost to GiantX when they played them the last week of the season. We'll see how they do it in a best of 3. I mean, I think they should be better than GiantX, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lose. I think that's a pretty close series.
By the way, for people who aren't idiots, I'll just explain sort of what we mean when we colloquially make statements as analysts. So when we say, and everyone was saying this, well, you might not know this, guys, but we don't just casually read Reddit. We do it for our job. We actually try to like parse all the information in the community and get like a temperature check and see, like, for example, that's why I like to see what Peter Dunn thinks of a draft, and then I go and see what LS thinks of it, and then I'll see what Monty thinks. When you, as a fan, go, actually, everyone wasn't saying that. You're just dickhead Joe Blogs who could have been stood in a broom closet with fucking shades shades on, your eyes closed. How the fuck do I know what you've seen? And more importantly, I don't care. What you've saw and your friends and their opinion do not matter. You are here to listen to me and say in comments. So keep spitting them shit comments out in the chat on Francais. Right, so let's move on. So we've done the fucking Mad Lions one there. Vitality, I want to do this one next on because this team fucking tortures me. Because when I actually look at it, I do think a bunch of the players have sort of shown themselves to just be dysfunctional players who don't fit together even in this team. But I'll tell you what, they're like almost good enough that I start to believe in them. But every time I believe in them, some shit like that last series happens, Dom, where it's like, bro, you guys are like trying to lose these games. Like, I know I've been pretty hard on Hylissang, but fuck, this, at the moment, he deserves all the like abuse, man. Like, he actually is just, every game, it's like he's doing that like fucked up trade meme where it's like, I offer you my life in exchange for, fuck, I don't know, nothing. It's like, what? Why is he, like, the joke is, I don't even think BDS could have lost that series. Like, they were just constantly being gifted chances to fucking win the game by this guy. Why is he so egregious at the moment, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There has to be some type of game knowledge issue with Hilly. I mean, before you could kind of see one of his ints, like he would int really hard for tempo. So you could kind of view him as a tempo genius where it's like, I mean, he did give 300 gold to the AD carry, but the AD carry like missed a wave, I guess. And like his AD carry got a plate. So like in terms of like the experience and gold, maybe his AD carry benefited more, but now you just watch Hilly walk up and just like lose the game on purpose. Like he's playing Ashe support. The fight is 100% lost. And he's just walking up, autoing them, and then his whole team gets ace and they lose. Like, what could possibly ever go right in these situations? Like the ints that he has are so, yeah, I mean, like you say, they're so egregious that there's no way that you could actually defend him anymore. Besides for just being like, well, I guess he's just playing bad this game. Like he has some good games and he has some bad games. It can no longer just be play to play. We analyze it and we try to figure out, was this a good, like, does this play have any like value? It's like, no, the play is objectively horrible. The whole game is fucking lost because he just did this. But like, maybe he'll play good in the future. Maybe he'll have like a good pipe game later on. I mean, I don't know. It's very hard to defend Hylissang because he's been one of my favorite players in Europe. But at this point, he just looks like he is inting on purpose.
Also, I've got to say this. I think we need to just take a quick sort of check, guys, on the historical dipstick of where people are. Because you know how a few years back, Tom, sadly, it was like 3 or 4 years now, you know, there was that great convo you could have. Who is the Western GOAT? Is it Perks? Is it Caps? And you could do the back and forth. Like I could build a case around captaincy and stuff for Perks and, you know, macro moves. And then maybe on Caps, you talk about mechanics and the ballsy playmaking. But you know how the problem with that convo is? I mean, the Perks part of it sailed, hasn't it? Like Caps just keeps going and then Perks hasn't been that good for a while. So unfortunately, if you do that argument, even if like me, you had the Perks side, you'd have to just give it up now. It's obviously Caps, isn't it? Dude, you know that whole thing where it was supposed to be like Hylissang and MikyX are like in a neck to neck, but that fucking ended years ago, guys. That was like, I agreed. I even used to, by the way, low key be on the Hylissang side. I used to think he even seems like he's more influential. Bro, you know what? The flaw of MikyX's game, I apologize, MikyX. You were never Hylissang. Like you might have had splits where it was a bit harder. You didn't get the champion goal. You have never done anything like the splits I have seen this motherfucker turn in. Like this guy, you might in one game, this guy's in a whole series. And he even has that crazy look in his face where like in Mad Lions, they used to just laugh it off like, haha. But he has that look where it's like, I'll get the best analogy I can give you is this, Tom. You know, if you have like a pet, like a dog or a cat, and you tell it not to do something, like a cat famously, you know, when they tip like the cop off the shelf, you know, that second where you're telling it not to, but you can see in its eyes, oh, it's just going to do it. Like he has that look in his eye every time he has these in games. Like, oh, he's ruthless. He'll go back in and do that again, mate. Like, and so the problem I also think as well is, I will say this, Mac was his coach before, and I can tell you their approach with Hylissang isn't sort of like hands-on, like don't do this, don't do that. They do sort of like try and let him figure it out. So I know how that resolves itself, quite frankly. I think he's just getting his shit together. It's also probably one of the worst metas for him because even when there are like the blitzcrank or whatever, like I wouldn't fucking trust him on it now, mate. How can I draft that for him? He'll just fucking blow the game.
Yeah.
He'll probably like pull someone into us and get us killed or something.
I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, the Pike game was a game where I was like, all right, like, fuck the Ashe bullshit that he's been playing. That's not a Hylissang champion. You never actually expect him to be a great Ashe player. I mean, he's okay in lane, and then he just runs it down later on. But Pike, like, this is the famous Hylissang Pike game. I can't wait to see. Oh my God, he entered the whole fucking game on purpose again. Like, there was no way you could watch that game and not just be mad at Hylissang afterwards. Like, it made me, like, when I was done with that game, I'm like, please, man, please turn it off. Please just, go back to play, like, play Nautilus or something. So at least when you int, it's like, well, everyone kind of ints on Nautilus. I mean, the Pike game, there was a time where at level 4, he tried to solo kill the enemy AD carry, and he like misestimated it by a solid like 500, 600 health.
Yep, it's metal.
Like there was no way that he could have ever won the situation. Like he would literally have to just have his ult and ignite and like an extra fucking serrated Dirk to even have a chance of winning that 1v1. So some of the plays he makes, like you just can't defend it.
Go back and watch the play Dom's talking about. And I swear to you, because everyone knows I've played a bazillion Pike games. It's one of those ones where, mate, you even know when you first go in, like, yeah, I've completely miscalculated this. So like, if you're not in solo queue, just leave at that point in time. You know what I mean? You don't have to die. Like you can leave. But he's just like going all in anyway. Like, I know what you mean. He never could have got that kill. It wasn't even on the cards. Like essentially, I even think if that guy completely misplayed, I don't think you kill him, mate. I don't think the kill pressure was there.
No, there's no point he could ever kill him, especially when you play Pike with like Halo Blades. Like you're a burst champion essentially. Like if you don't kill them in the burst, you're not sitting there and trading autos with your 50 damage auto attack and actually winning the fucking fight. So
true.
It was crazy to watch. And then there was like the plays later on where he's just running it down in the game. But yeah, it's tough to watch Hilly because I just feel like it's so hard to not think that he's just completely washed at this point. Like every time, like I really don't like calling players washed because I feel like there's a sense of finality to the term washed where it's like he'll never be good again. That's what essentially washed means to me. But it's so hard for me to imagine Hilly being a top support in EU again. I just can't.
I'll give you an angle.
I don't see what would have
I've got an angle I want to present to you because I also think, sadly, now that I've seen how the team plays, in hindsight, this isn't that great a roster in terms of composition, Dom. Because if I think about what Hylissang had last year, when I'm supposed to believe he had a Renaissance, right? He had Niski and then he had El Yoya as his jungle guys. Like you almost couldn't ask for better players if you're Hylissang there, right? Surely like fucking El Yoya is like one of the best junglers you could probably ever work with, by the way. And then Niski is like a fucking dream mid laner. Seems like he's supportive, run the map. Like the ones you have now is you have Douglas, who is a rookie, and then you have Vethio, who's like the joke of Vethio I keep making to people is this. I actually was sort of wrong. He isn't a star on the level I thought because he isn't self-sufficient. He can't do it himself. He needs someone else to enable him and then he can carry a game. So the joke is he's basically like the fucking mid lane version of BDS. Like he's not actually that amazing a fucking just raw mid laner. But if you get him to the team fight, he'll fucking do an awesome job. So if you think about it, I also don't think you've got the personnel. Like who's like Hylissang connecting with there? By the way, the Douglas guy just looks like he's putting out fires all day long. Like that guy's in nightmare fuel mode as a jungler, surely.
Yeah, I mean, he's also just probably the worst jungler in the league, in my estimation.
I don't get it. Like, I thought he was supposed to be hyped or something. Like, surely there's other people we could have had than this.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't like the way that he plays because I feel like, in general, he just misses so many timings. Like, as a jungler, for me, since, I mean, obviously that's the role that I played, I'm really looking at, like, okay, there's a timing where you should be, like, around a lane. Are you there? And it feels like Douglas is just never there on correct timings. And he doesn't really, like, push his lead. I don't think he has a good game sense for understanding how he needs to win a game as a jungler, like what needs to happen. And I think that just puts the team like in pretty bad situations. Like, look, also, if you're playing with Hylissang, you probably have to just over prioritize bot. Like Photon and Vetio are probably going to be able to escape some ganks. They're going to be okay doing their own thing, laning 1v1. You need to just be around Hilly because, I mean, Hilly will hit some spells. Like he'll make a situation playable, but if you're not there, he's just going to fucking run it down a lot of the time. But yeah, I mean, the main thing about Vitality, I think that they're kind of like the opposite of Mad Lions, where the worst players on the team are actually support and jungle, which is like a whole different problem. Yes. Where like you can win games because support and jungle are just like, I guess, like weaker roles in competitive, but it's so hard to connect these like winning lanes together because there's like the jungler is not diving on the correct timing. Hilly's like not moving with the jungler and actually like making action on the map. So it just feels really bad to play because it feels like everyone is just getting strong in their own right, but there's no way for them to actually force that onto the enemy, which is really, I think, probably the weakest part of Europe right now is watching games in general. It feels like everyone's kind of playing their own game. Top laners playing top, mid laners playing mid, bot laners are playing bot. There's no like, we are playing towards bot side as a unit. So like top lane is saving his TP, getting ready to go bot. Like mid lane is ready to drop a wave, ready to go bot. Like the jungler is hovering on the correct timers. Like it just feels like there is just no synergy between lanes right now. And the thing that I would say about Vetio is the more that I've watched him, I guess the main criticism that I have is I feel like he's not willing to ever sacrifice himself for something that needs to happen to be able to win a game. I think there's times where as a mid laner, you have to be willing to be like, hey, this game is fucked. And this is probably Niski's like best trait as a player. If the game looks like it's going to be fucked, you have to be like, hey, if I like have perfect CS, or I catch these extra 2 waves, or I base and I have like a small like HP lead on the mid laner, that will not affect this game at all. I need to make something happen on the map right now, or we're going to lose. And I feel like Video just never takes those opportunities. There's not a point where I see him like doing something that is low, like probably a lower percentage chance of working out, but it's the only way you win. It feels like he's so willing to be like, yeah, I had like perfect CS. I did my job perfectly, but we ended up losing.
Yes. He's not willing to flip the game. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think
that's
conservative in that sense. It's obvious. Yeah.
And that's another thing that I think Caps is really good at as well. Like when you watch Caps play with G2, G2 has some pretty sketchy games where Caps realizes like, I got to fucking put the team on my back. It doesn't matter if I'm playing a champion that's not a good roam champion or something. If I'm playing Quay and the game looks like ugly, I got to fucking move. I got to make something happen right now, or the game will just be too far lost by the time I hit my big items.
Indeed. Basically, they should just get Vethio, and when he's practicing, they should put headphones on him with that classic mystical song. Move, bitch! Get out the way! Get out.
Wait, that's a ludicrous song.
Nah, I'm pretty sure that was mystical.
Wait, really? Move, bitch?
You can look it up. Here's the thing, Dom. I know you and your big crit might think you know the rap game, but some of us are actual OGs in the game.
No, it's ludicrous. Move, bitch, get out the way. It's ludicrous. Yeah.
What am I thinking of? Oh, wait a second. What am I
Watch
thinking
yourself.
of? Oh, that's a very similar song. You are right. Yeah. You're right, actually. Yeah, I've mixed the two together. You're right, actually. Hey, well done.
Okay, all right.
Whatever. They're both good songs, though. He should also watch himself also, because then he realizes problems that he's moving enough. So there's a playlist. We've actually got you 2 songs there, Vetio. Put that on. And then there's the 3rd song, just because no one in France knows it. I don't know, maybe put on Tupac, Hit 'Em Up, you fucking plebs. You utter plebs. You don't By the way, I'll just say the same thing I said to Monty. You'd think the giveaway, Dom, would be why I intentionally left that part of the lyrics that just goes, take money at the end. Like, why would I just put that in parentheses at the end of like a diss to fucking Yamato or whatever? Like, it doesn't even make sense, you idiots.
It's one of those things, man. Like, I feel like just dealing with LEC in general has been so, like, it's by far my least favorite region to deal with fans in right now. Like, it just seems like you tweet anything, like, that's like just a completely valid claim. And it's like, he hates French people, he hates Spanish people. It's like, shut up, you bitch. Like, it's like, what the fuck are we even doing, man? It's like dealing with European fans this year has been just a fucking nightmare for me as a content creator. You can't tweet anything negative about Mad Lions, K Corp, even BDS without just getting like a billion. And it's not even like people will insult you and try to actually like go at your point at all. They just try to personally insult you. Like, that's the thing I've noticed about French and Spanish fans is they just only care about personal insults. They don't care at all about like what you are actually saying.
No, they don't. I mean, the joke is like, they basically, even if they actually saw you had a valid point, they would just go, you aren't allowed to say that because you aren't French or Spanish. It's like, oh, brilliant. Well, it's a nice standard we've set here at least. All right, what about this then? I think we obviously need to talk because it's kind of, I actually think, by the way, low key, we've already got what I think could be a mega spicy match in the low bracket. Dude, everyone's writing off Heretics. Like, oh, they're just washed, done, like her perks, as usual. Mate, it's not like fucking SK have looked good since about after like week 2 or something. Like, SK's got plenty of flaw. I think that matchup, I think either team could lose that game. Notice I said lose, not win. Either team can lose that fucking best of 3, Dom. Like, I think, sadly, these are both teams I had high hopes for, but they both just got like fatal flaws, mate. What do you think of this matchup?
I mean, it's like, I don't care about the matchup, I think is my biggest problem. It's like whoever wins that, aren't they just losing to Fnatic no matter what?
They should, yes.
Like SK, I mean, everything that they were doing well before, it feels like it's pretty much gone. I think the biggest problem they had is that Isma was really fucking good in week 1, and they're like, oh man, this jungler is like come in, and if he plays at this level, it's going to be great for the team. And then he just was not good in the next weeks. So, I mean, there it is. Like,
since everyone already operates on narratives now, fire Niski since he helps the junglers. So, yeah, that must be the logic, right? What about Gummer then? You must have a fucking shitload on Heretics, though.
To be honest, like Heretics is just tough for me to watch. They're probably the hardest team for me to watch because every single week I just have to accept that my goats are washed. I'm God damn.
I go in just wanting them to be so good, and then I just get so underwhelmed. I know. It's so sad,
it's like I watch the games and I'm like, okay, like, all right, we got Wonder playing Udyr into Adam's Rumble. Like, surely he'll just win. Like, that is the counter pick, and then he just gets solo killed in lane. The lane was still fine afterwards, but it just. Like the Ezreal mid, I don't know, man. I can't watch this team because the thing for me is that the part of the team that should be the worst in terms of like laning. I mean, I think Yankos has been doing fine, but the part of the team that should be the worst is Kaiser and Flocked, and that probably is the best part of the team.
No,
like Flocked and Kaiser are actually pretty good.
By the way, I even said this on Summoning Insight. You know what, dude? I'll tell you who in hindsight stock goes through the roof. It's fucking Flackhead, mate. First of all, every team he's on, Dom, is actually a solid team. And then secondly, he's the only person who ever made Targ Armas look good in LEC. Like, no joke, Flackhead actually is better than I thought. Look, he still was never like some super talent. He's never going to be like what at their peak, upset, forgiven, reckless, these players were. But I'll tell you what, his flaw is fucking amazing, mate. He can seemingly just work with anyone. This guy's like a legit team player.
I mean, have you noticed that like what we were saying before, which is that like Flocked is like pretty good. He's like a maybe upper mid-table AD carry.
Yes.
Isn't that just what everyone views him as now?
Yeah,
like,
I don't totally legit, right?
I don't see anyone saying he's the best AD carry in LEC anymore. It seemed like that was just because he was on G2 and just because he's Spanish. No one actually is going for that argument anymore.
Obvious angle, Dom. They're both Spanish. Why would anyone be telling me the Super guy's awesome, but Flackhead isn't? Flackhead's better than Super, I'll tell you right now. It's not even a tough choice for me. Easy, I'll take Flackhead all day long.
Definitely. 100%.
By the way, the joke is, since he's Spanish, why didn't they just sign Flackhead for their fucking team? Just put him on Mad Lions, you idiot. That should probably be a good bot lane. But obviously, we're not allowed to actually help you and suggest the Spanish players who could join your team, you cretins. So, okay, the problem I have is this one. I actually think the same thing. Whoever wins this matchup gets murked anyway. That's the saddest part. What I'm looking for with these two teams is this, Dom, is do you think one of them can actually, like, do one of them have potential for future splits, though? Can you actually see them get it together? I think the pieces are there. It's just which one can get it together if you had to pick one?
It just depends on player performance, I guess. Like, it seems like a complete RNG prediction for me. It's like, does Isma actually get it together to the point where he can put together consistent performances? If he does, sure, maybe SK can be decent. I don't think the lanes are like bad. I mean, I'm still kind of out on Xkick and DOS. They seem very flippy whether they like play well or not. And then for Heretics, I mean, Perks has probably had his worst like 2 weeks of play we've ever seen in his entire career.
Except the problem, Dom, as usual, because the dickheads had to claim that like on Cloud9 he was bad every game. They have nowhere to go. For them, he's just been this bad for 2 years now, Dom. He hasn't. This is like every year he's gotten a little bit worse, hasn't he? Like, and the problem is now he's hit rock bottom.
I mean, I feel like this is even like a really really bad level of play considering how he played in week 1 and week 2. Week 1 and week 2, he felt like he was okay. Yep. Like it didn't feel like he was like he would make some misplays, but it wasn't anything egregious. But these last 2 weeks, it feels like he's just bad every single game.
Yes. No, I agree. It's been bad so far. We'll see on that one. Right. What about a few thoughts on GiantX. I know that unfortunately they've been like one of the only teams that was essentially irrelevant the whole time. And my joke would be this, a bit like that BDS one. You know what? Here's my joke. GiantX, you didn't actually accomplish anything yet in this split. You just aren't Rogue or Karmine Corp. That's it. That's all you did, is you just walk up, look in the mirror. Am I Rogue or Karmine? Oh, no, I'm not actually GiantX. That's it. That's all it's going to get you 8th place here, guys. But you are going to be 7th to 8th place. Like, I think even fucking Mad Lions could beat you. The joke is the only chance you even had to not be 8th place is getting Mad Lions at this point in time. Like, give me some thoughts on this GiantX team, mate, because I think this lineup's trash. I think it's so bad.
I actually think they've been playing like better in the last couple weeks. Like I think their final week, I mean, they put together a pretty good game versus Mad Lions. Even like the game 1 versus G2, I mean, they had opportunities to win.
They did.
I wouldn't be that surprised if they beat Mad Lions. Like I don't think that they're significantly worse than them. I mean, they just have to come into their style. I think the big question mark has been Jackie's on this lineup the entire time, but he has been playing better over time in LEC. Like his week 1 was really bad, and then it seemed like he kind of just got more acclimated to playing at the LEC level and just being on stage and everything. So I'm not completely out on them, but like honestly, they might be the best team in this losers bracket. They could be better than SK and Heretics. Like
you're obviously not the Fnatic, you just mean this first round. Yes, sure.
Yeah, the first round. Because I mean the way it used to work was this was like the losers bracket that would play into like the.
I will say the bot lane's probably better than I expected it would be. My problem is this though, mate. Like, what is the point in a team with Pichu or IWDominate at the same time? You know what I mean? What am I doing with this? Like, I mean, we need a different jungler, surely.
I think what you're trying to do with this is you're trying to like have stability so that where you like you can put more coin flip players into other roles. Like you could have a player like Jackie's and have like the game rely on him instead of just having, multiple people that could flip like 40% over and over again and just lose a bunch of games.
But like the problem with them is the cap just seems so obvious on that team, but oh well.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty obvious cap. I think that their cap is 5th, 6th. I think the highest they can get is 5th, 6th. They could get it, which honestly, like for their lineup, I guess that is a win.
Of course, yeah. I mean, before the season, no one would have them there. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, I think I had them 8th or 9th or 10th.
I think I had them 10th actually. I think I had them last.
What about, let's do the Fnatic one, because obviously Fnatic in some ways, they're actually one of the teams I was thinking of with that BDS comment. They're sort of the problem child of Europe, in my opinion. Like when they play well, and some of their players, like, yeah, guess what? The top side of the map can sometimes look like, hey, maybe this team actually should be the second best EU team. Maybe they should contend with G2. Maybe they can win the split. But then I see the bad games, and then all of a sudden it's like, actually, fuck, what hope is there? Like, this is kind of a bit whack again. So for me, this team is so streaky for me. Where are they at for you?
It's really dependent for me on Oscar's play. Oscar had probably like one of the worst weekends I've seen from him. Just he was bad almost every single game. Yeah, this last one was terrible. I mean, he played when he played the Yone, that was maybe the worst top Yone I've seen in competitive play. It was just disgusting. Like when it comes to mechanics, when it comes to how he played the lane, like it just looked terrible the entire time. He played Karma into Zach. I don't care if Zach is even considered OP. Let's say we find out Zach is really OP. There's no way you should be getting solo killed as Karma into Zach. I just refuse to believe that that's ever a thing. How is that even possible that you're getting solo killed this Karma into Zach when Karma is considered a really strong champion right now as well? I mean, he just felt kind of useless like almost every game. And at this point, it's starting to feel like he's just a Cassante merchant. He plays Cassante well. If he's not on Cassante, everything else is worse. So I'm hoping that he just gets it together and he's able to play at that level again. But without him playing at a top level, it feels like he's a major liability on this team.
Thing is though, Dom, you know what's sad? We were wrong. It turns out all you need to do is give people 5 whole splits together, and finally they sort of can play together like Razork and Humanoid. Keyword sort of. Like, I'm obviously being sarcastic there, guys. Like, they are better than they were before, Dom, but they're never going to be awesome together somehow. They're all right. They're all right. I will say Humanoid's level's definitely better now. The actual one all along that I do feel like has been so maligned is brought. I actually feel like Razork's had such a tortured career. Mate, if I could just take this guy out and after Misfits, I just drop him into a G2 or a very well put together Peter Don team or something, I feel like this guy could have had an incredible career, mate. Like, the talent's clearly there. Like, he has like a good foot. Like, his mechanics can be bonkers. He has like a mind for the fucking what to do. Like, but I just feel like on this team, he's a bit wasted.
Yeah, I think the problem that I've always had with Razork is that he can't help himself from like throwing the game. Like, it feels like when he has leads, there's always like one point in the game where he just does something egregious that puts his team behind. So he's not able to just like put together a full game of just consistent like dominance. It feels like he's really good. Like, he starts the game really good and then he'll just like throw and then kind of come back later on and do stuff. So that's my issue with him. I think, yeah, like Razork and Humanoid have been fine this split. I think they're good, but it's also just a Humanoid meta, and it's one where you don't have to interact much with mid.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's just slapping him in the face as champion pool.
Yeah, I mean, it's Azir, Orianna, Corki. I mean, when you have these types of champions, the reason why I don't necessarily believe that their synergy has gotten much better is they don't have to interact. Like, it's just you play control mage mid and you just let him do his thing, and Razork plays around other lanes. That's it.
By the way, in this inspired reflections I just put out the other day, guys, there's a moment you can go and you'll find there'll be like a timestamp for it, Dom, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. But you've got to watch it. It's so fucking banter. Because you know the thing about inspired is, if people don't know, whereas Jankos, who's Polish as well, has like learned like how to soften his image and to seem just really cool and chill. And he's also just a weird, light-hearted person, you know, right? Inspired is a little bit more sort of like raw and a little bit more blunt, right? So not only when I ask him about that Mad Lions LEC final loss with Rogue, does he just straight up flame fucking like Larson and IWDominate and say they choked, but he didn't, which is all, I love it already. I love already. Because what he doesn't know is like the unwritten rule in like America, for example, but you never flame your team. You say like we all lost as a team, you know, we either all choked or we did. But already, even though he's just being honest, he's done that. But then the funniest thing is, he points out a moment in the game, Dom, and I went and watched it and holy shit, this is so egregious. there is a crazy moment in the game, right, where Humanoid on Victor is just completely caught out of position, and IWDominate can just go on him and they probably kill him and win the whole game and the final. And if you go back and watch, supposedly Inspired said something. I think he said like he got the comms or something for Mad Lions, and in the comms, supposedly fucking Humanoid even says something like, "Oh shit, I'm in bad trouble" or something, and then IWDominate like misreads Thor and goes on like the support of the top player or something and fucks the whole fight. And the worst thing is, like, if you go and listen to those comms and watch this moment, I can see how that would it would be burned in your head, dude. It would haunt you forever. Like, if you see this one moment, like, they should have just had this kill. It's so bad. It's so bad. Oh, because I already knew that was like a killer final. I knew it because it got reverse swept, but like, it's those ones where like you just know what you could have done. Like, it was literally there. Like, you had to just basically reach down and pick up the championship, and you couldn't. You tripped over and fucking like some Dick Dastardly shit and fucked it at the finish line. That's so insane. I love it. I love it. I love being tortured by those moments.
I mean, the thing about that final that was so egregious wasn't even that like they got reverse swept. I mean, if you look at the last game of the reverse sweep is a massive, massive like 9K gold throw. Like that must be the worst feeling reverse sweep of all time.
Yes, it's so gross. It's so fucking gross.
Yep.
Oh, no, that's it. So Yaska said in the chat there, he went on to the ADC who had Flash and Cleanse instead, and he had a Renekton.
Rest in peace.
So, why are you doing that, Odo? Bro, I've supported you for all these years. You're getting a one final. Like, oh, shit, guys. Oh, my dick's out. Oh, my dick's out in public. Like, all you had to do was not have your dick out in public, and then you win. Like, oh, shit, it's out again. It's out again. Like, bro, I don't care how much I like you. Put your dick away and fucking win the championship. It's all right. He did put his dick away the next split and win the championship. So, 2 years later, 1 year later, whatever. It's all good. It worked out eventually. You know, he's reformed now. Right. So, is there even any team left to talk? Isn't that everyone? I think that's all the teams.
We got everyone.
Oh no, I've got an angle for you to ask. So here's what I didn't ask you though. What about the all-Korean bot lane of Fnatic? Because I'll tell you what, mate, that's actually one of the things in the off-season. Look, I can't flame Fnatic super hard because actually by keeping most of the team, it kept like the floor of the team, and as a result, they're one of the better teams in the LEC. But mate, that feels like a missed opportunity because I have to say, I think this all-Korean bot lane is just whatever. It's like, surely if I'm getting all-Korean, it should be mega. You should be like studs who will fucking carry me out the game. Like this. First of all, Noah is no berserker, and then the jump guy's just all right. He's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But like, why are we recruiting this guy? I don't get it. I don't get it at all, mate.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I mean, I feel like Jun has played pretty well, but Noah's been playing worse overall. So it just doesn't like this. The result is the same, where their bot lane just isn't a huge point of power. Yeah, I'm not really sure what it does for the team, but I'd say Jun looks like he's a good LEC support. I just don't know about Noah, and it feels like Noah just. I mean, he hasn't hit even close to the level that he was hitting early in summer. Like early in summer, it looked like, holy fuck, this guy is going to be insane. Like his trajectory is crazy.
He fucking tricked us all. Those first 2 weeks, he just fucking, it's like a hustler. He just tricked us. He made us think one thing, and it doesn't matter now. We all just keep going, he should be better. And it's like, he just isn't, mate. He just wasn't that cracked, it turns out, sadly.
Yeah. I mean, then he has like these tweets where he's like, it's like, they say that I can only play like Aphelios, or like they say right now that I can only play Varus. It's like, watch me. It's like, yeah, but like everyone's been right about that. Like, you literally couldn't play anything but Aphelios at Worlds. Like, it just is what it is.
It was an amazing pleb correction of Rich's wrath, where he was complaining about Targamas' champion pool. And this guy goes, what are you talking about? He played 8 champions in 9 games. It's like, we weren't suggesting he can't lock them in champ select, you moron. He's just not good on any of them. What are you talking about? Of all the angles, you're really going to die on the hill that checks notes Targamas has a good champion. What are you talking
please,
about?
Man.
What are you talking about? Bruh. How could that be? It can't.
I mean, the conversations that I have are just so stupid on social media. I swear to God, like the level of like the average level of like LEC fans reading comprehension has gone down massively in this split. When I tweeted out that thing about like I said BDS do not have a good early game. If you watch the early games, they lose almost every single early game, right?
Yes.
The most upvoted response was like, "What a horrible take!" Like that's not a take. That is literally just a fact. Like you can go back into the game. It is completely verifiable that they lost the majority of the early games. You can look at every stat. You can look at all the games itself. There's no way that you can go and the reason why you watch the games is because you can win an early game while being behind. If you're playing like a mega scaling comp and then you're like down 50 gold in the early game, it's like nice. You've kind of won the early game. You've done things to actually make your team have a better chance than they should at that point. But if you watch the games, they have comps where they should be able to get leads early game. They don't do anything with like in the early game to get themselves leads, and then they just lose. People are like, oh, horrible take. I will dominate. You just go on their Twitter and it's just like it's just like everything is just a French retweeted giveaway. It's like, thanks, man. Like, this is just so fucking constructive. I love it.
By the way, every person, here's another thing they keep doing, I've noticed in the modern day, Dom, that is so annoying, because it's essentially like they've just decided we're never, ever allowed to be right. So I'll give you an example, right? If you were to talk about someone, like I just mentioned Berserker, right, who obviously isn't doing great in Cloud9. So what they'll do is they'll go at this, Dom, right, since you've mentioned a player who was really good for years and years, I'm going to just only talk specifically about right now, and he's bad. So don't ever say he's good. But then if like Faker plays like shit, I'm supposed to go, sorry, he's still the GOAT and a 3-time world champion and fucking one episode. Like, which is it? Which is it? Like, it's like you'll notice this happens in politics. People who actually can't just debate points just choose so that when you say a general pattern, they choose the specific outlier. And when you say a specific outlier, they just go, well, what about the general pattern? It's like, it's just fucking shit. All this is a framing tactic, guys. It's not smart. It's just nonsense. Like, anyone could do that all day long. Like, by that logic, by the way, I'm supposed to actually say that, like, Odoamne's just fucking shit. He's just worthless top lane. No, obviously he wasn't in the best form of his career, but look at how many fucking years he has, I
mean, the thing that's so funny about those types of situations is like, I'll be like, hey, this is like the information on the early game. And Nuck will literally come in my replies and be like, yeah, I agree with those points. We need to get better at early game. And those comments, like Nuck's comments will get less upvotes than like the random fan that's literally just shitting on me for being correct. Like even the player that I'm making this point against is coming in and being like, yeah, I agree with those points. Like the only thing that like what he was making the distinction of was between laning and laning phase. When I hear a team's laning phase, I'm talking about the whole phase of the game. He was talking specifically about their individual laning. Okay, whatever. It's a misunderstanding. My point still stands.
It is a second language. You can have a mistake every now and then, guys. Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, I'm completely okay with that. It's like, but my point is like they have a flaw in their gameplay that is a scary thing when you go and play against better teams. You do not want to have a bad early game when you go to like an international tournament. And then you just have like fans like, yeah, you're wrong. It's like, well, the player that I'm talking about, like who's literally on your side that you're trying to like defend here said I was right. And they're like, yeah, whatever, bro. You're still fucking wrong. Like, it's just so.
Also, by the way,
it's like K-pop stands nowadays. That's what fucking LEC has become. It's like K-pop.
That's what the model is. Like that's why I always say the T1 fans are the least surprising fans of all. They're just K-pop fans, but fake as the K-pop idol. That's all it is. Like the joke is, they're not even fans of T1. They hate the other fucking players when they lose. They just want Faker to win. Irrational and irrelevant to how good he is now. Just want him to win no matter what. Yeah, no problem. By the way, I also love that angle as well. So what happens is you just make like a tweet on your Twitter account. The player himself, it not only thinks you're relevant enough, but considers your point and directly engages with you. And then you have like the 1 million little fucking goblins who are like, ha, little bro thinks he knows him. You think you know him though, bro? No, you think you know him. Daft Cod, he's talking to me. He's literally talking to me right now. You're the one looking inside the windows of the pub going, imagine if I was the one having a pint of lager with him. And he's literally turning to me going, another pint, Thorin? Like, give me how much more do I need to know him? Do I need to biblically know him and actually have sex with him or something? Like, what are you fucking talking about here? We're going too far, guys. It's just fucking Twitter.
The funniest thing is like, not only did like Nuck respond in public, he also like DM'd me in private and we had like a pretty like decent like back and forth about like, you know, the intricacies of the team. Like he even just like talked to me afterwards and was like, yeah, you know, like I completely like understand where you're coming from. Like you make a good point. I agree with like everything that you said. It's just like, I just meant that our laning is good and our laning phase. Like maybe you think like the way I see laning phase is just like the individual laning phases. The way you see laning phase is like the early game, right? That was literally all we talked about. But it's so fucking weird that like you say anything that's negative and even the player's not offended by what you fucking say. The player's like, yeah, good point, bro. And then all the fans just go and just shit on you mercilessly. It's just so fucking pathetic.
Listen, I can't lie. I don't DM with Nook. I mean, I did one time DM him a picture of the poster for Ratatouille and say, look, even if you can cook, you are still a rat. I never actually did that. That's a joke. That was just the thought. Look, it was funny. I should have just lied and said I did do that. But that was just purely for the purposes of entertainment. And none of the people mentioned all their likenesses in any way copyright infringement. Right. Obviously, that was the Best Damn League Show Classic Edition. Next week, tune in to see who's not Dom. If hearing us wax lyrical about the matchups, the top teams, the good players, the bad players, who we thought would be good, who actually has been good, who shocked us, who's been bad, maybe it makes you actually think it has changed your mind about who's going to win or not win a game. We'll check out the pricing, because they obviously have all the LEC games up to be bet on as of right now on esports bet. You can go ahead, and as you can see, Team Heretics a slight favourite over SK. Maybe you're feeling Nisky and Isma. You've got Mad Lions is actually a favourite over GiantX. Will Odoamne and Patrick actually show their veteran skills? G2 plays BDS. On paper, you'd think G2 all day long, but at 3.1 odds, isn't BDS kind of a canny little underdog? Don't they actually kind of sort of win when they shouldn't later in the game? Interesting. If you want to bet on any or all of those, obviously go to esportsbet.io, use the promotions we mentioned elsewhere. You can also find out other matches and what me and Monty think of them via our competitive edge, which is on the esports bet channel.